Welcome in. This is the Champagne Room podcast. It is Thursday, August 20th. Hard to believe. 2 weeks away from Illinois football taking on UAB at home. And I am joined today by the Evan Stone of ESPNCU 93.5, The Drive with Curtis and a handful of interns and everything. So, Evan, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, my pleasure. Tell Chief what's up.
Yeah, you can. He's got his Kong back there. He's staying entertained. Because if I don't do that, he'll find something to bark at or something to chew up or whatever. But
yeah, what you got in there? Peanut butter?
Got some peanut butter, and I usually freeze like sweet potatoes or blueberries or something and put them in there. So it takes them longer to get through it. Yeah. So
let's go.
Trial and error.
Yeah, you're good at this.
Hey, yeah, I've had to distract him a few times. So yeah, August 20th. How's it feel to? I know being on the radio, and I've been a part of that world in the summers. How's it feel to be, pretty close to being able to talk about real sports?
Oh my gosh! I mean, obviously, so excited. Sometimes I think these last like 2-3 weeks are the hardest of all of it. Because now at this point, it really does feel like you've hit almost every topic. Like we can only talk about 3-3-5 so many times. We can only talk about who the linebackers will be so many times until eventually you're just we just got to see somebody hit somebody wearing a different uniform. And we're almost there. But these last 2 weeks, I feel like they drag every year. It's like, oh, come on. So, but I'm ready to get there. I've been working through, this is my project right now doing, this is all the Big Ten schedules and doing over under on win totals and trying to figure out who I feel confident with, who's got the best bets. And, but yeah, I'm ready for some football.
It really is. I can agree with after the last few weeks, I definitely feel like this for Illinois basketball too. Like once you get close to the season, it's like, holy cow, we've talked about everything, every which way. Like we really just need to see some action. And I know I mentioned this before, like for the media and everything, they're not even really seeing practice. So you're still, even though we're 14 days away from the first game, you're still doing a lot of like projecting. And it is unique. I felt like that the past few years, like say Toledo a few years ago. And then I want to say, who did you play? Like when you play a lot of times a smaller team week one, last year I think it was Eastern. It's almost like the preseason for NFL where you're starting to realize like, okay, like we know Katin Houser is going to start, but it's like, okay, who do the coaches feel is going to get the number 2 reps? And same thing with on defense, like who's even going to start at a lot of those new positions. So it really does feel like the first game is a preseason game. And then, Duke is real Power 4 competition. So I guess that leads me into my first question. How are you feeling about this season? We'll get into some more nitty gritty, but end the year successfully last year. There's a lot of ups and downs, but you got Bret Bielema, you got Barry Lunny, and some other veterans. So yeah, what's your feel going into this season?
Well, I think obviously coming off of last year, you knew Luke was going to be gone. You knew some of these Gabe, like some of these people that were the foundational focal points, the pillars of this program were going to be moving on. So there was always kind of this uneasy of like, okay, where do we go from here? Like what's next? And I've been on a couple of different shows where they talk about, it's funny listening to national people, they're really down on this Illinois team. And a lot of that is the reason why, like, okay, Luke's gone. You're replacing 4 out of 5 on the offensive line. You're doing all these different things. But I think where some of my confidence has grown over this summer is really just nailing down to this point where, yeah, there's a lot of transition. There's a lot of overhaul, but none of it was a surprise. Like I don't like everything that needed to be changed. Coach B knew going into last year, this is something that's going to need to be changed. It wasn't like there was some crazy surprise on the offensive ball specifically. There wasn't this crazy surprise transfer list where people just, left out of the blue and now you got to refill some of these holes. They knew offensive line, quarterback, receive, like we're going to need people to come in those spots. And so the confidence there is that, yeah, there's turnover, but they've been planning for this turnover for a while. And they seemingly targeted, I know Coach B, I think it was at Big Ten Media Days. I mean, he said, as soon as I saw Christian Martin film, I was like top of the board. Like, that's who I want. I think he joked, they're like lineman board. And he said, no, board. Like, that's the guy that I want more than anyone else. And so the fact that he went out, you look at Micah at left guard and got the guys that he wanted to get, Katin at quarterback, I feel really confident in that. Now, how can anyone feel confident on the defensive side of the ball going into this year after everything that, a couple of guys in the NFL, there was a rash, seemingly interstate exit of transfers out of that defensive line specifically, out of that room. It seems like, obviously some of that is Terrence Jameson going to the NFL. So your defensive line coach moves on. You bring in a new defense coordinator. I think they knew there was going to be quite a identity shift and philosophy change on the defense. So that probably played into it as well. But it feels like the shift that they made might fit some of the guys better on the roster. And so I don't think anyone can say, hey, I'm confident in the defense. But what I can say is I'm confident in Coach Bielema. Our floor is so much higher than it's ever been before. And I feel confident in that floor. And going into this year, it is just kind of like all right, I'm not going to say house money, but man, let's just put the ball out there. Let's see what happens and go from there.
Yeah, Bielema has definitely raised that. Like, I would be shocked if we ended up 3-9, whereas before Bielema got here, if Illinois football went 3-9, even if they had expectations going into the season, it's like, well, that's just another, underachieving year where everything hit the fan. And you brought up a lot of good points, like offensively, a lot of returners, and I really think Renfro being healthy at center is going to play a huge piece, because at any level of football, going to a new center like halfway through the season or whatever is not ideal. And yeah, like you said, the defense is kind of a lot of veterans, but a lot of new pieces, and lost a few guys on the defensive line you didn't think, but and we were briefly talking before, like the linebacker room, it's really hard to know anything like right now, like of confidence. And one thing I liked that Jay Lehman actually said on Illini Inquirer's podcast, which helped me understand the new defense, was, and this made sense to me. So you got the 3-3-5, the 3 D linemen, 3 linebackers, 5 DBs, essentially. If you're able to mix up, the offensive line, get them confused, get a sack or get a tackle for loss. Now it's 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13. Then the offense is really kind of scrambling, and they're out of their comfort zone, and they're going to have to pass. Okay, well, if they are being forced to pass or forced to go 12 or 13 yards, those are where your best players are at, and a lot of your veterans. So to me, that made a lot more sense. So like kind of hoping to get a few of those a drive, a few negative plays each drive. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting season. So biggest reason for optimism for Illinois football this year, for the people betting the over, I think we're at 7.5. What would you say is the biggest reason to rely on?
Coach Bielema. I mean, it's just, I think we've gotten to the point as Illinois fans where we can have that confidence simply because our coaching staff has proved it, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Now, yeah, there's going to be, let's say the 3-3-5 comes in and completely implodes, but you look through our schedule and you really think, okay, who on our schedule, because the weakness of the 3-3-5 in theory is people would just pound the ball down your throat. You know what I mean? Like they just come in and they just run it on the edges and they just get after you. You look at our schedule though, who does that? Like who is a team other than Iowa, quite possibly. If I just look through the schedule,
Ohio State's going to be able to run on a lot of people, but I mean,
yeah, but they're going to do that. No, it didn't matter what.
Yes, exactly. No, I get what you're saying. You're not playing a ton of ground and pound type teams like old school Wisconsin, where they were just going to get 300 yards rushing on you.
Yeah, I mean, you look through the schedule. If we're looking defensively, and as you talk about that system, Duke, Purdue, Michigan State, Oregon, Maryland, Nebraska, UCLA, Iowa, Northwestern. What of those teams are you really looking at like old school Big Ten football? Like, man, they're going to really challenge us on the edge and at the line of the scrimmage with the run game. Iowa is probably the only one. But then the balance of that is Iowa probably has the worst quarterback situation in the Big Ten. So it's like kind of yin yang mentality. I think the optimism is, I was on a Nebraska show last week, and they said, historically, Illinois, good season followed by 5-7, good season, 5-7. Last year, that was broken, kind of, that curse seemed to be. And so what's the vibes now going into it? And I just think as people who follow Illinois football, we just got to get over that mentality and recognize, man, as we were talking, the floor of Coach B it's not 3 wins. It's not 4 wins, 5 wins. I think his floor is 6 or 7 wins on a schedule like this. And so when you're looking at 7.5, like that's an easy over. I will also say, to the defensive point, I went back and watched Montana's quarterfinal match against South Dakota State in the playoffs last year. And I don't think he was calling the plays. I don't think he was calling the defense, but he obviously had a big hand in it. He's bringing it here. In that entire game, if you look at a 3-3-5, they had 3 down linemen almost every play, but they only had 3 defenders on the line once in the entire game. So the way that they lined up and the way that they situated their defense, and only once in the entire game did they rush 3 guys. Every other play, they were bringing linebackers, they were bringing a safety, they had an overshift. They were only in the 3-3-5 stack, the 3 linemen, 3 backers, 1 play, except for, the last 5 minutes when the game was over. It was out of reach. Things changed then, obviously. But for the depth of the game, it was a very multiple defense. They were stunting every single play. They were twisting every play. They were bringing safeties and linebackers forward. They were blitzing guys. And it's just like you said, first down was vitally important to get them behind the sticks, behind the chains. And then all of a sudden they play right in your hands, and you're right there. You got them where you want them.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of, like, you flip on football on Sundays, and the Steelers, they've got like no down linemen and but they've really got like 6 D linemen that are just all standing up on a weird play. And it's going to be interesting. Unfortunately, we're probably not going to find out a lot against UAB, but it'll be fun to actually
I hope
see
not.
it. Yeah, right. You don't want Duke to find anything out either. One big thing that came out, I guess, real quick, I'll ask you, concern wise, and I know Bielema has raised the floor big time, which is so nice to have, because even 5-7, even like, I know he's done that twice now. 5-7 floor for Illinois football is not that bad, considering the history. A group that's concerning, or you would feel less confident in, if you had to pick one, and not like in a personal attack on the coaches or the players or anything like that. It's just like, we really don't know, and it seems like a lot of unknown.
Well, I think the most concern right now is the defensive line, just because it's so much unknown and it's a new system. We're seeing pieces in spots that we've maybe never seen them play before, but might fit them better as an athlete. If you look at a Mason Murrigan or Daniel Brown popping back into the linebacker spot, Will Holmes coming back up to the defensive line, there's a lot of kind of, trying to fit puzzle pieces in with that. And I think that's the position group as a whole. I'll also say I don't know if I would say concerned, but the kicking game is going to be massive this year. David Alano, gets his bag, which, props to him. Good for him. Mm-hmm. You got 2 guys coming in Osada and Ethan Milcheski, and you're trying to figure out, okay, who is this? And as we watched Alano win us, 3-4 games over the last 2 years, it's like, there's a little bit of a question there as you replace the entire special team system. But I think right now my biggest worry, and it's not a specific position group, it is all these guys that we're hearing throughout camp that are wearing the green jerseys. You know what I mean? They're wearing the non-contact, whether it's a Hudson Clement or a Grant Bierman, or you bring up Jake Renfro, which I actually think TJ McMillan as the backup center, when he came in last year, played really well when Kreutz was out for a couple of games. So I'd feel confident with him. But yeah, you got a lot of guys that, man, they're stud pieces, but they got to be on the field. You could bring up even Xavier Scott, Matthew Bailey. They've got a long history of injury concerns. It's like, man, if we got our 22 out there, I'll even say our top 30, I feel really good. But if you start getting beyond that, it's like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get pretty concerned.
That is my biggest thing about this. I've been texting with Mike Carpenter and Trevor Valise like all summer, and that is my biggest thing that I bring up every time is having these guys stay healthy is a dream. And that was my other point I was going to say is that they announced captains, Colin Dixon, Aiden Lawfrey, Jake Renfro, Xavier Scott, Katin Houser, Matthew Bailey, Renfro, Lawfrey, Xavier Scott, and Matt Bailey, 4 of your captains. And that's nothing against their leadership skill, obviously. 4 of your captains have missed huge, significant amounts of football the last few years. And those guys, you need those guys to stay healthy. I think of, and you're right, McMillan. I forget which game he came in and played really well last year, where it wasn't Purdue. Yeah, it wasn't even noticeable that that Kreutz was out. And yeah, so hopefully we can stay healthy and because I agree. I mean, most teams wouldn't feel that confident if they lost that much depth, unless you're like an Ohio State or an Oregon who's got, NFL guys in the 2 deep. What do you think it says that, and you're in the community, you hear a lot of things, I'm sure. And I mean, yeah, you go to a lot of games and stuff like that. Katin Houser being a captain right in his first year. I don't think Luke was in his first year, and I don't remember if Tommy was a captain either. So, and that's nothing against those guys. Again, it's just like, I think that says a lot because Bielema clearly takes that seriously. What do you think that says that Hauser's a captain in his first year in Champaign?
Well, if you remember the big stink, the big dust up it was because Luke didn't go to Big Ten Media Days his junior year, and everybody was like, what's wrong with Luke? Is he a bad leader? What's going on? I think a lot of that is just kind of, makeup on the program. It's like, okay, whatever. The captain thing, I really do think is kind of a big deal, especially this year, because it's player voted. And so it's not coaches kind of pigeonholing guys into positions like, hey, we really need our quarterback to be vocal and to be a leader, so we're going to make you a captain. It's players who voted on the captains, and they voted Katin Houser as a captain in his first year. And from everything I've heard, he came in the spring. He was here for the whole spring session and immediately was just, hey, we're gonna get this going. We're gonna figure this out. He went home to California. He flew out a bunch of the guys to go with him. That's like NFL type stuff, to bring your center, to bring a bunch of wide receivers, and to go work out together over the summer. And so there is a confidence level in that I'm not gonna like try and pretend like Luke Altmaier not being here is not a big deal. I mean, he's on the Mount Rushmore of Illinois quarterbacks. I would put him there. So people might disagree with that, but they're wrong. So it's like he's on the Mount Rushmore of Illinois quarterbacks. So I'm not trying to gloss over the fact that he's not here anymore. However, if we're looking at a 1-year rental to come in the position of where our program is right now, Katin Houser maybe is proving that he was the perfect guy to step into this situation. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He was in the Big Ten. It didn't go well, which it didn't go well for anybody in that Mel Tucker experiment up in East Lansing. So I'm not going to hold that against him. He puts on his time out on the East Coast in Eastern Carolina and gets a redemption shot at Big Ten football. And I think he's wearing that chip well, and I think he's leading this team. And so as a captain, I feel incredibly confident that the words the coaches are saying about what he's done is not just coach speak, but he's actually stepped in and elevated from where it was in January. The identity of this offense, the confidence of this offense post Luke, and I love it. I'm excited to see it. Hopefully we don't see him a lot on Thursday in 2 weeks, but I want to see who comes out second.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see if hopefully the quarterback of the future is currently on the roster, but I'm excited for him.
I just wanted to say we're proud to partner with State Farm agent Brian Hansen, dedicated Illini fan. Just as we work to bring you coverage of Illinois athletics, Brian brings the same energy and commitment to serving his clients. If you're looking for a local professional who cares about the community and the orange and blue, visit brianismyguy.com today and see why so many Illini fans trust Brian Hansen and his team for their home, auto, business, and life insurance needs. This segment is also brought to you by Chiefs Naturals. Chief is proudly named after the University of Illinois mascot, and to keep him fueled, Chiefs Naturals created premium, all-natural treats with 0 mystery ingredients, perfect for your dog. They are officially launching this September. Head over to chiefsnaturals.com right now and join the VIP list. You'll get exclusive email updates about the launch. You don't want to miss the first Chiefs Naturals drop. Again, that is chiefsnaturals.com. Simple ingredients, epic tail wags.
That's crazy. That feels like such a foreign concept nowadays. What back in the day that was like you developed a guy and then brought him up and then he was your quarterback. But now that
I told someone the other day that I think the days of high school recruits, quarterbacks playing for the team they commit with are pretty much done. Like it's more of a farm system now. You go, you train, you get stronger, now go find an opportunity.
It's really like, unless you're like Bryce Underwood or like a crazy 5-star that, athlete that could be playing in the NFL at 19 or whatever, like it's not going to happen. I feel like, and I mean, it's okay with me. Like I'd rather take a risk on like a JUCO guy or a lower level guy than put a lot of time and energy into a high school. Like it just makes financial sense too. Do you have a player or group? I know you said on the drive, you guys have been doing play or position breakdowns and things like that. You have a player or a couple players you're super excited about that maybe is being slept on. Like I would say you can't say any of the veteran DBs unless you make a good argument, and probably not Houser, Valentine, like any of the popular guys. You have an under the radar guy that you're excited about.
Yeah. I have a guy on both sides of the ball. I'm really excited about Nathan Knapik. Like I think he can be a legit, you talk about a 6'7", 300 plus pound right tackle who's got long arms. And I think because of some of, Brandon coming back and being that experience and some of the older guys transferring in, that maybe he's not talked about as much. Like I don't hear a whole lot of Knapik talk, but the way that he stepped in against an SEC opponent in a bowl game and at left tackle and held his own. I joked yesterday on the show that when JC Davis opted out, if I'm Luke Altmaier, I would have been right on his tail walking out the door as well. I'd been like, I'm not going to go play Tennessee without my left tackle. But Nathan Knapik stepped in and I'm not going to say he dominated, but he played like a starting left tackle in that game. And I was really encouraged. And so him switching over to the right side, I think he's going to be a stud over there. And then on the defensive side of the ball, and no, he hasn't been talked about a ton because of injuries. I'm a massive Grant Bierman fan. Like I think Grant Bierman could be one of the best linebackers in this century, going back to the Jay Lehman, but then before that the Howard Hardy days. Like I think, and especially in this system, he can be a freak. Now he's got to stay healthy. And so if he can somehow, he's a part of the green jersey gang right now. If he can get healthy and get out there on the field, you talk about a 6'5", 230 linebacker who can fly, who's nasty, who can hit. Like I would put him at, the top of guys that I just want to see on the field doing something other than covering a kick or a punt. You know what I mean? Like I just want to see him getting after somebody. And so, I mean, there's just a list of some other guys behind that. I'm really excited to see Daniel Brown in this role. I really am excited to see Will Holmes move up to the defensive line, because I think that you talk about a 24-year-old former professional baseball player getting a chance to now come in and play defense. I think that's a cool story. We had Sonny Verma on the show yesterday. He said he thinks Jay-Sean Platt is going to lead the team in receiving yards and receptions. So, I mean, that'll be fun to watch. But yeah, everybody else is probably being talked about. I think Barnett in the running back room, he could be a stud, because as you talked about, injuries with Aiden and all that stuff, you never know what you're going to get. But yeah, you give me Nathan Knappich, you give me Grant Bierman, and I think those two are going to be studs.
Yeah, Bierman is definitely like a cult favorite, if you will, I feel like, because you see a lot of people tweet about him and tweet about the idea of him, and maybe that's partially because of his last name. But I think he has a lot of traits too, and yeah, you hope he's just one of those guys that pans out, because you see it. And I forget what game he came in and had a pressure last year, like out of nowhere. Let's see. So I would say most people agree the schedule is favorable, avoiding Indiana, Penn State, Michigan, which are three of the more talented teams in the Big Ten in the country. X factor game for the season. What's a game or two you're really looking at that you're like, this is going to be the difference between 6-6 or 8-4? Because to me, I feel like SIU, UAB are must wins. Probable losses, Ohio State and Oregon, and then most of the rest of the games I think are coin flip. Like there's a few of those in there you should win and will be favored, but it's not like if you were to lose them, it'd be the craziest thing in the world. What are your thoughts on the schedule and some X factor games?
It's interesting because I feel like historically for the last, several years, that game has been the Nebraska game. It's been kind of like, okay, Nebraska is kind of that we're going to read the level. We're going to see where we're at. But that game has been earlier in the season. It's been one of your first Big Ten games of the season. Now that game is more towards the end. So I'm like, I don't think I can count that as like a swing game. It's like when it's in November. So I'm trying to find earlier up in the year where you're trying to gain that confidence. You're trying to see like, okay, yeah, we can put this together and do it. I don't know who Duke's going to be. New quarterback. I'm not like sold on him at all. I know Bret Bielema will tell anybody who will listen, ACC champs coming into Champaign, all that stuff. But I don't know who they are. If I underlined on my schedule here, kind of the toss up questionable games that I'm looking at, I got Duke, Nebraska, UCLA, Iowa. But those are all kind of at the end of the schedule. If I'm going to pick a game smack dab middle early, I'm going to say, and this might be a surprise, at Michigan State. I think at Michigan State is a tricky game. I don't think their roster is good. I don't think overall they're a great team, even in any sense of the word. Their win total over under is 4.5 this year. I'd probably lean to the under. However, there's just something about East Lansing and going to East Lansing that has always made me a little bit uncomfortable. And so that is kind of your first, obviously you go to Ohio State, but at Michigan State is kind of your first road game that is like, and I don't want to say we're not going to be in it in Columbus, but I don't think anybody would be offended if I'm like, it's probably not going to happen. But at Michigan State, your first road game where you're like, we should handle this team. Will we? And so I think that might be a barometer game of just trying to figure out, are we who we think we are? And how is the vibes for the rest of the year? Because then you get a bye week right after that, and then Oregon comes to town. So that's a massively important game going into a bye week and then having your best opponent coming to Champaign, which Coach Bielema coming off a bye is like 9-2 against the spread or something like that. Like it's a crazy number. So we need that game in East Lansing, and so I'm gonna be keeping my eye on that one a little bit.
Yeah, I'm actually going to that game. I'm stoked. And I agree. I like the points you brought up about just like where it's at in the schedule and your first kind of winnable road game if you take out Ohio State. And Bielema has an interesting, like, yeah, he's great off of buys, and then he has another interesting stat where he's not as great against first-year head coaches for some reason. That might be a little bit better after last season, but I know going into last season it wasn't that great. And Fitzgerald at Michigan State, I know the people I talk to around here, it's kind of hit or miss. Like, people weren't that excited about the hire just because of like his last few years at Northwestern. But I don't know about you. I really don't see them being like middle of the pack. I could either see them like you said, going under their win total or being like 8-4 somehow, because that's just like what Fitzgerald did at Northwestern. So that is going to be, I feel like for both teams, that's a really make or break game. And Houser going back to Michigan State, Fitzgerald and Bielema obviously know each other, and yeah, that's a big one. October 10th, I believe. Coming up. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. There's a lot of big games late in the season, so hopefully the weather's okay for a couple of those if we need to rely on passing the ball. So that brings me, we're coming up on 30 minutes or so. That brings me to my last question or two. What do you think? You don't have to give a dead-on prediction if you guys are saving that for the show or something like that. But what do you think warrants or would be a successful season technically? Like, I think, like you said, Bielema's raised the floor. So what would be a successful year 5, 6?
Oh gosh. 21 going into 26,
Year 5,
year 5. Right?
Yeah. What would be a successful year 5 for you?
Well, actually, no, it is year 6.
Oh yeah, because 5 and 7, then the Rely Quest 5.
Yeah, look at us.
Okay,
come on now. There we go. And I just remembered that because I was doing some research already that Coach Bielema is already going into his 6th year. He's already top 5 in both tenure and overall wins as an Illinois head football coach, which is just not ideal, but great for us now. I think it is funny. You win 19 games in 2 years. People are, you win 9 games last year, yet people were still somehow down because there was all the playoff hype before the year. I think we kind of resituated after the Indiana game, and we're like, okay, what can we still do? And then the Wisconsin game kind of poo-pooed on everybody, and then you just kind of finished the year or whatever. Honestly, I'm not going to say this as like a cop-out, but if you make a bowl game in 3 straight years, I mean, that's like program establisher. Like you are established as the years that we begged to be, it's such a cliche thing, but the years that we begged to be like Iowa. Like if we could just get, 7, 8 wins, 3 out of 5 years, one of those years is 6-6, one of those years is 10-2. Like if we could just do that in 5-year cycles, hell yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's it. And so you look at some of this turnover, I think we're going to have more than 6 wins, but ultimately, if you go 6-6 this year, that would be frustrating. But if you take a step back as a whole and look at the program that Coach B is building with a first-year defensive coordinator, a lot of the turnover that you've had, instilling a new system, whatever, I think you got to step back and say, okay, as a whole, that's pretty good. We're on the right track. But like you said, win total 7.5. I think as I look through the schedule, I got 6 games that I feel really good about putting a win on right now. So then you have 2 games, like you said, Ohio State, Oregon, that are going to be really difficult to pull those off. So right there is 6-2. And then you have 4 games that are more of your, I'm not sure what this is. This is a toss-up. If you go 50-50 in your toss-up games, you hit the over on the win total. So I know that's not how the math always checks out when you get into real life situations and scenarios, but I would feel pretty comfortable taking the over. And I'm going to do, an actual prediction on the show next week. But don't get your hopes up. I'll do that on the show next week. But I feel pretty confident as we sit today on August 20th and what we know about this team and these questions we still have at saying, I think 8 wins is definitely on the table.
Man, it's hard to believe the Nashville bowl game was almost 9 months ago because I remember it like it was yesterday. But I think like you said, there's just those few games that are gonna really dictate things. And I agree, a 6-6 season. Like, now here's my asterisks on that. If your 6 losses are really disappointing, like say Oregon, Ohio State embarrass you, say that you have a ton of special teams mistakes against Iowa and you lose by 17 or something, like, I think those 6 losses need to be competitive. And maybe the 1-score magic wins from the last few seasons catch up with you a little bit and you lose on a couple last second field goals to, Maryland or UCLA or something like that. Like, I think that's still, and like you said, like that's what Iowa does. Like, even their years they're 6-6, a lot of times they don't get killed by Ohio State and Michigan. It's like they lose 21-7. And so I think that would be definitely acceptable if you lose competitively. Obviously this team has higher hopes, but
it's always how you look at it, because and how it actually looks. Because I told people a lot going into last year, this team can win less than they did the year before, but still be a much better football team. And you got 10 wins one year, 9 wins the next year. I think that 9-win team was a lot better than that 10-win team. It's just sometimes those margins catch up in certain moments and certain spots. And you look at the 2 years ago, the Rutgers win, you look at some of those comeback wins that they had, the miracle stuff, the ball doesn't always bounce that way. And we could be 6-6 and feel really encouraged. Like, man, we were right there. But we could also be 6-6 and think, dude, we dropped a game to Purdue and Michigan State and somehow then still beat, Nebraska. And it's like, what does that 6-6 look like? For sure. But if I'm just taking a step back, a bowl game 3 years in a row, I don't think in my lifetime I've ever seen it. Maybe I was 2 back in the, 90, 91 or 89, 90, 91. I think they did it. But 3 bowl games in a row, and I got to be happy with that.
So last question. So I know, since I've known you, football has been your number one over basketball slightly. Still a big Illinois basketball fan, but where does Bielema rank in terms of coaches, and like where does this era, if you will, rank the last few years of Illinois football in your mind and in your lifetime? I'm sure like when we won the national title and like during World War II, people back then would say that was awesome. But what would you say? Where would you rank Bielema in this era?
Yeah, it's weird when you're winning national titles when everyone else was shipped off to war, and it's like, all right, cool.
You're playing the YMCA.
Man, I gotta say, if I just looked at my lifetime, I think that's the only fair thing that I can really, we could go back to Mike White and all that stuff. But I was born in December 1988, so really 89 on. If I look at my lifetime, Bielema's got to be the top. Like you've got flash in the pan. There are seasons that I had more fun in than I have in an Illinois than in a Bielema season. Like 2001 was the height of me as a kid. I'm 12 years old. I'm going down to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl. Like all those games that happened that year was incredible. I'm standing there as Kirk Kittner is lifting the Big Ten championship trophy. Like that's the most fun season of my life. However, as a program where we're at right now as an Illinois football program, like this is the height of where we've been consistently in my lifetime. 37 years old. This is the tops of it. And the confidence that I have going into games week in and week out has never been what it has been right now. So yeah, I got to put it, if I've got a Mount Rushmore of coaches or, stints of Illinois football, this is right at the top.
No, I got to agree. I'm a few years younger than you, but there's just something about Bielema, the way he talks and like the moxie he has. And even the thing I love the most is that even after losses, he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He doesn't blast his players, like put like embarrassing, like some coaches will do. But it's just like, I would want to play for that guy. Like I would want to like I talked to Johnny, which awful news about Johnny Newton tearing his pec. That's terrible. I think Trevor Sikkema tweeted that on Twitter.
Did that come out today?
So I saw
yesterday?
it late last night. I saw it late last night from one of those, like, kind of, I hate to say mid-level reporters that like they have 300,000 followers, but they're not like Adam Schefter or whatever. And then I saw it this morning from like a Trevor Sikkema, I think, who works for NFL Media now, and a few other people. So I assumed it was true. So, and then I've seen a ton of other Illinois people retweeting it, but I had him on like a month ago, and just the stuff he was saying about Bielema, like most of the players and people that go through that program just are obsessed with Bielema. And I think that says a lot in today's college football with NIL and all these different things. Like, cool. Well, we've gone almost 40 minutes. We probably could have gone longer. And I appreciate all the insight. The drive, you guys are doing a lot of shows. I know baseball kind of gets in the way of your schedule sometimes, but what's coming up? Where can people catch you? And let the people know where you're at.
Yeah. So ESPN Radio here in Champaign, 93.5 on the drive. We're on 3 to 5 live every Monday through Friday. 5 to 6 is a recorded hour that they loop and they replay, but you can also find us on podcasts. We're on YouTube. I think our YouTube channel actually still says The Drive with Tay and Piper because nobody can seemingly get us the password to the YouTube to try and change the name. So we'll just have that forever. It's whatever. So we're on YouTube, we're on podcasts. If you want, you can find me on Instagram if you care, but that's all of that. Just don't Google me. Yep. You're right. Bad news for big men. Commanders Newton ruled out indefinitely. Dang it.
Yeah. That's a sucky injury for a D lineman too.
Yeah, so that's good. Last thing I'll say about Bielema, because you're right, like people love him, and this goes like top bottom. I am so confident that the people we have in charge are never going to be caught off guard. Like they're so in tune with what's happening around college sports and the world of college athletics. When you look at Josh Whitman, Bret Bielema, Brad Underwood, Shauna Green, like they are in tune, and I feel confident that we're not going to find ourselves in some of these positions that other schools have found themselves in, where they're kind of caught with their pants down and have no idea what's going on. And that alone, I think, is good for like 6 wins. You know what I mean?
Dude, I know. I know there's a lot of Illinois fans that, especially for basketball, it's like the standard should be Final Fours and Big Ten titles and all that stuff. But as far as, like the whole department goes, I think objectively speaking, you look around the country and there are not many departments that you'd be like, they have their crap together as far as like the AD, football, basketball coach, and even Shauna with the women's team. Like I got a bunch of friends that are Michigan State fans, and like their AD, president, coach, like all that jazz last few years has been a nightmare. So in this era too of college sports, that's not when you want to be going through something like this. So cool. Hard to believe. 2 weeks away. Are you going to be there? UAB?
I'll be there.
Nice. Okay. It's a late one. 8 p.m.
So
I think
like an
Central.
8 o'clock start.
Yeah. Which I think Eastern was late last year too.
Yeah, they're trying. You get that TV slot, and so they've got probably some East Coast game or something week 1, and then we get dropped in that next slot.
Yeah, sometimes if you play that Thursday night, you're like the main game. So who knows? But cool. Evan, thanks so much for joining me. This has been awesome. I'll definitely get you back on once we know some more. We've watched some games, and yeah, you guys keep rocking on the drive, and most importantly, ILL.
I man. Let's get it.